Good evening, and welcome to the Lowell Planning Board, December 15th, 2008. Tonight we have a basically light agenda. First part of the agenda is the approval of 3 sets of minutes. The first set of approval for minutes would be the August 18th, 2008. The board members have any chance to look over those minutes? Have any questions in regards to the August 18th minutes? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Motion's made, and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
The August 18th minutes have been approved. Moving along, the next matter would be the minutes for the September 4th, 2008. Any comments, corrections? Hearing none, entertain a motion to approve the September 4th.
Chairman, I make a motion to approve the minutes from September 4th, 2008.
Motion's made.
Second.
And second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes yes, minutes have been approved. And moving along, the last set of minutes would be the October 20th, 2008. Any corrections? Hearing none, entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion's made.
Second?
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes yes. Those matters have been approved as well. Moving along, we have nothing scheduled under new business this evening. We do have a couple of matters under old business. The first one will be a site plan and special permit, 76-80 Roger Street. This is the old Mother Hubbard project. The Lowell Planning Board will review a proposal from the applicant to address concerns raised by the Division of Planning and Development with request to the deviation and architectural details between what was approved and what has been constructed on site. The project was before the board for site plan review and special permit and included the demolition of the former old Mother Hubbard mill building on site and the construction of 35 townhouse-style housing units. The project is located on 2.1 acre lot, approximately 2,703 square feet per unit, in the traditional neighborhood mixed-use zoning district. The project site is at the corner of Perry Street and Roger Street, and the development is accessed via driveway off Roger Street. The project requires special permit under Article 12, Table of Uses and Site Plan, and under Section 11.4 of the Lowell zoning ordinance. The board issued a conditional approval for both the site plan and the special permit during the meeting held on June 4th, 2007. On December 4th, the planning board did have a site visit with all the board members present, and Attorney Flood and David Gray, as well as one of the gentlemen, his name is, Jim Gaudette, and also Aaron Clausen was also there, and we did go through all the things that were brought to our attention at the last meeting. Some of the matters we did resolve, some of the matters we made comments on and left the matters open and referred it back to tonight's agenda. At this point in time, I will ask Attorney Flood, you did receive the matter?
I received it today, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Yep, I received it today.
I believe that some concessions had been made and we agreed on some certain things on site. Basically, let me just ask you, first of all, if our Associate Planner, Aaron Clausen, has anything to add before I turn it over and ask some questions of Attorney Flood. And anything further to add from your memo that was dated December 8th?
No, not as of yet. I've spoken with Mr. Gray today and Attorney Flood. Just this memo is intended to serve two purposes. One is kind of a summary of what was discussed on site and some of the alternatives and to mitigate some of the deviations from the fenestration of the building. And as you had mentioned, Chairman, there's two items that are outstanding that David had suggested that they're looking into still. So I'm sure I can address that a little bit more. But other than that, pretty much what's in the memo here is what was discussed on site.
Okay. We do have them listed 1 through 8.
Yeah, well, I think, just for the record, I think Mr. Clausen did a good job outlining the issues that we did discuss on that site visit. I think the unfortunate situation was with the power outage that this memorandum didn't circulate to everybody in time to get complete answers for tonight's meeting. I think as far as the developers are concerned, Mr. Gray did have a telephone conversation with them today, and they've agreed on everything in the memo with the exceptions of number 2 and 3, which they want to review and get prices. And I think if it can be done, they will be done, but it will be done. But at this point in time, they'd like to have an idea what the expense would be. And I think that David's email was down Friday. You know, I didn't get this till today myself, so I would hope that we could agree on everything else and leave that open till the next meeting when David will come back with an answer for this board as to those two.
Okay, thank you, Attorney Flood. Do the board members have any comments on, let me think, if they agreed to everything except for 1 and 3 at this time, which I
No,
want to
2 and
comment
3, 2 and 3.
3 and 3, yep, I
2 and 3.
apologize. 2 and 3. So basically, the other ones, I think, were basically covered. Any of the board members have any comments between 1, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8? I mean, 1 was the Perry Street facade for the windows. The developer agreed. Basically knows. I think the only thing that I didn't see, which I thought about that when we discussed it, and correct me if I'm wrong here, on Perry Street by the windows, the developer has agreed to provide the following: plant the hedge, and then plant a tree for the corner located under the existing window. I think one other thing we did discuss was that monument in the corner.
I think we've got to place a monument, but I wasn't so sure that the board wanted it where we suggested. We were suggesting underneath that bump out, but.
Yeah, I think, we talked about
Put it on
Kitty
on the corner.
On the corner, right.
David, you remember that? If you could just step forward. Okay, Mr. Flex, I just asked him if you don't mind. David, you know how we said on Perry Street, and we thought about maybe instead of putting the monument underneath there, if we could put it out by the corner, so it could be seen.
Yep.
Do you have any
We're
problems
looking
with that?
No, we're looking at that to make sure it will be seen through the fence and the column that's there.
I
But
think
yeah,
we
could-
talked about, Mr. Flood, I know we have
probably a
different
good
groups here.
spot for
It's
it.
basically where the sign is now, advertising the site.
Yep. It's just a matter how we're gonna how we'll do it, but we do have that, and we can put that on that
You
location.
know what I mean, where we talk about all, and then out where the sign is now, we thought maybe the monument could go there in that corner of Rogers, and I know Mr. Gray had no problem with that. when we
Is
talked
there
about-
a stone column at the corner?
There is, so we just have to. figure
Yeah,
out
it's
the
just
corner.
how you
Yeah.
corner it so you can see it, because if it's behind the stone column, you're really not gonna see it
Yeah.
from
We could
both, so,
probably, we could probably meet with Aaron out at the site and come up with a.
with the location,
Remember to talk about that, Aaron, about that?
in that vicinity.
Yeah, I recall now that discussion. In fact, I think it might be good in internal discussions about the placement of the hedge or arborvitae's along Perry Street to kind of give us a little bit of some massing there. As you move, our chief design planner noticed as you move down or north on Rogers Street, you still kind of get a clearer view. So we might be able to place that monument to the north or to the left of the tree in the corner there to kind of provide a little bit of greater masking. We can work out the placement of that, and I think it might be worth in one of the recommendations that we had was that as we come together and finalize the landscaping, that the chief design planner will make sure that the placement and the species that's selected is going to work there, and we can get something that's good.
I think you
So
all
maybe
wanna-
that could be a part of that process.
Yeah, you wanna make sure that it's in a spot where everyone will see it, so.
Yeah, I think that was some of the concern, we thought about putting those trees and stuff, and I think, we were talking to Mr. Gray about it at the time, that it might be shielded there, so he had no problem putting it out front. I think it's just a matter of where
Yeah,
people
that'd be
feel
fine.
comfortable putting it.
Yep, that'd be fine, we could put it either location.
Okay, so that's not a concern on that? Okay. So the main concern, okay, which is the gable returns, that's one matter that you do want to look into and get back to us on. And I see where Mr. Clausen gave actually a copy of something in the
Yeah.
notes.
Yeah,
You have a copy of that? Okay, that was number.
right, we do.
Yeah,
Okay,
basically, I was just trying to, there's those two images. The first one on the gable return is, I just wanted to do a quick search to see if there's something out there where there's something that's a molding that could be used as a gable return that is vinyl, something that could work with that shouldn't, doesn't seem to be that it takes a lot of work to fit in there. So, and of course, still, you need to look at it closer than I would, but I just did a quick search, something that would be a good example that isn't too large, that shouldn't pose a problem for pigeons perching or anything like that.
Our construction foreman is gonna take a look at that, and we're gonna research that before the next meeting.
And so number 3 was the building bump out, and Aaron gave a copy of that, which is attached
Yep.
on page 3 here, so you could consider
Correct.
looking into that.
Yep.
Then on 4 was the window shutters over the garage, and those have been installed. Number 5 was the portfolios of the building entrance, those have been agreed upon.
Yep.
Then number 6, the second level window of building F, and that's when we went inside and looked at the layout, and that would have been foot high at the top of the stairs.
Because of the landing, correct.
And then number 7 were the columns added to the porches. We talked about leaving them the way they were, we talked about the structural design, and instead of painting them, leaving them the way they were. And there was just a talk about putting a tree to provide privacy, there's no problem on that one there.
No.
And then the meters, we discussed about putting the trees in there by the meters. And there was one concern about lowering the bump out, and the talk was either we had trees on both sides, and I think Joe's concern mentioned if we put the trees on both sides, would balance it off. And so at least the utility meters would be screened, which you had no problem with, and we discussed that, and we walked it off, and you figured, I think it was 6 to 7 would cover it.
Yeah.
Okay, so basically the only 2 things are then for number 2 and 3, you'd like to consider those further and get back to us on those?
Right, right, and I mean, I think it's their intention to do them if it is all financially feasible and the construction will allow it. And that's what, we just want that additional time to review it and come back. The next meeting is January 5th, right?
Yeah, what
Yeah.
happens, we have, actually, on part of our agenda this evening, is to accept our schedule for 2009, and as of now, the first Monday in January would be January 5th. So I believe that would be the next meeting, subject to approval.
Now, the only other thing that I would like to just mention to this board, that we're willing to do this, but I just want to make sure that there's a finding that these are minor changes and not involving a whole new public hearing. If we could have such a vote, would be good.
I personally don't think, I think it would, I think we kind of, I think it's a minor change myself, I don't know what the other board
Yeah.
members feel, and I think when we decided to do the walkthrough and some of it was architectural, that was the assumption I was going on, but I'll take further discussion with the board members on that. Do the board members feel that this is a minor change or just some architectural matters instead of revisiting the issue and setting up a public hearing, or do you feel these are minor adjustments because it's just minor architectural issues and it's not parking, it's not, issue with the amount of units, it's fire apparatus problems, board of health problems, city, other departments, engineering, where it's just all the same units. That's usually when we get into problems with a new set of plans, when we either adding a substantial amount of units or detracting a lot of units. The board members feel this is a minor change in architectural plan?
Yeah, and the whole overall scheme of things, I would classify them as minor architectural changes.
Because we still have the other whole development, which is the next
Right.
way in, which isn't even started yet,
No.
correct? And we approved it all together, so this is
Yeah.
only a piece of a piece and a
This is
small
only
architectural of a piece.
this beginning piece.
Yeah, and
Beginning.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I view this as an attempt to bring it back in line with what we thought
Yeah.
was the original approval to begin with. So it's not so much a deviation, but an attempt to get it back on at least the intent was with the original
I
approval.
think there was a little misunderstanding,
Yep,
too.
fair enough.
And everybody's willing to work together, which is great.
Fair enough.
Mr. Claremont, do you have any comments on that?
No, I think that that's fine. I think we can approve that as a minor change in the plans, and at some point, vote to accept the things we've already discussed as being agreeable to the developer. I did have one question as we go through it, though, on 2 and 3, which we're going to reserve for another date. On 3 specifically, the 2 points that were discussed under number 3 regarding Building C bump out, one was installing white trim along the base of the bump out to match the existing trim to provide greater definition to the mass of the bump out. And part 2 of that was a 4 to 6 foot high hedge or arborvitae planted along Perry Street facade, and a tree planted at the back corner. Is the issue that you're reserving just about the trim?
The trim underneath.
Right.
It's,
Sure.
I think it's really the trim on the Roger Street side that
Okay.
we're looking at on that. That's, I think, on the Perry, we're okay with that.
All right,
I
so
think
it's,
it's on the Roger Street side, bump out into the courtyard.
so you just want to review and discuss the white trim under 3 and the gable returns under 2?
Yeah.
Is that, Aaron, is that?
If I can clarify that a little bit, that's basically it in the image that I gave. The second image shows a kind of a larger trim under a bay window with brackets.
Yep.
And this image was shown to kind of deal with the issue Member Gendron had with the length of the bump out. And what we were showing was that these brackets can kind of hint towards a longer bump out and would possibly kind of solve that problem of it feeling kind of top heavy. It was a way of using molding, and instead of bringing down a false front, use the brackets to kind of hint towards that. And then you have the arborvitae kind of covering the bottom up. If I understand correctly, what you're looking at is whether or not doing something that substantial with the brackets is something that you would want to do. If they were to do that, my suggestion, you'd do it on all those bump outs, not just one side. The trim that's discussed on the bullet list here, and I think you were pretty much okay with, was just adding
the white trim underneath.
the white trim that's already being used along the sides and the corners. Just take that and put it along the bottom of the bump out. Right now, the bump out is just gray, and the trim along the sides of it just kind of end. And by putting even just I think it's a 5 1/4 inch trim along the bottom at the minimum would help kind of
Define
pull
it.
that out and give it a third dimension a
No,
little
that,
bit.
we'll definitely do that. We're just looking into if we would be
Brackets.
The
feasible to
brackets.
do the bracket that you're talking about.
All right, so the trim portion is fine, it's
definitely
just
will be done on both
whether you're going to consider the brackets as,
that was-
in addition to the white trim, and then all of number 2 under the gable return.
Right.
Okay, so, why don't I back up and see if we could, first of all, entertain a motion that this is a minor change to the project.
Chairman, I make a motion to that effect. That
Okay, it's for the minor change architectural, and it does not cause a substantial change to the project, but therefore we do not have to hold another public hearing, correct?
Right,
Okay.
yes.
Motion's made, anybody want to second that
I'll
motion?
second that, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Mr. Fischett, second that, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And the chair votes yes. Second matter is, we will, there's the 8 matters that we brought to our attention, we had previous discussion on, had the site visit on. 6 of the matters we have agreed to, so basically, we can accept those as requirement of the site plan approval. Is that accepted, Mr. Flood?
Yes.
Okay, so number 1, 4,
Four.
5, 6, 7, 8 have all been accepted.
Right.
Is that acceptable to the board members?
Can we not also accept 3 with the exception of the brackets? Because 3 speaks of the white trim, which we're
Sure.
going to do anyway, and
Yeah.
So it's an
and the hedge and the
And the
arborvitae, so
arborvitae, yeah.
Accept it, yeah.
3 is acceptable with the exception of whether or not you're
Brackets,
going to do the
Just gotta
brackets.
work on the see
It's
if we
an
can.
addition, not even, yeah.
So could I have a motion to that effect that we accept those matters?
I'll make that motion, Mr.
I'll
Chairman.
second the motion.
Motion made and second, all in favor, say aye.
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 Chair votes yes. And basically, we will, the recommendation is that we continue the matter to our January 5th, 2009 meeting for further discussion on the gable returns and for part of number 3, which is the bump out regards to the trim, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
It was also suggested, Mr. Chairman, in terms of, final approval, that the plant species placement and now the monument placement be reviewed by the design planner. If that's agreeable as well, we could add that as a condition.
No problem,
Okay,
no problem.
if we could add that also as a condition.
So we can approve that, so, do we want to approve that at this point in time, or do you want to wait to see if they come back on 2 and 3?
Well, I think that this refers to some other
Okay.
things that are approved in 1 through 8. So we should make that a condition of approval that,
Okay.
that the plan, that all the plant species selection, placement, and the monument placement be reviewed by DPD.
Any of the board members have any further comment on that? Aaron, do you want to be heard on that?
I
before
just had just a couple comments on that. With respect to the gable returns, there was also another comment or recommendation that we were making with future buildings, that if it was determined, and I know we're not at that point of making that decision right now, but it was determined that the existing buildings, it was infeasible to replace the box cornices with the cornice return, that the new buildings that are to be constructed along Perry Street include the full return, even though there's not
The balance?
a balance between what's existing and what's new, that we felt it was more important to have the full gable return than to continue with the box cornice. Does that make sense?
And that's in the note, and
Yeah,
we'll be
that's-
ready to address that on the 5th.
Okay, all right, so I just wanted to make sure.
We want to look at what you gave us, and I think I said at the site visit, the concern with the pigeons, and you didn't think this would cause a problem with the pigeons, with what you gave us in your
Yeah,
comments.
it's pretty
Yeah,
small.
so we want to take a look at that.
I know on the site visit, there were some homes that had them, and then
Yeah.
there were some places that Jerry took pictures of that didn't have the issue, and we had a chance to look at the other things in the neighborhood.
Yeah,
Where I
so-
think the one on Perry Street, those
Right.
did have big returns.
Right,
I
big
think Aaron's
returns, and they
trying
had
to
the
narrow
chicken,
those down.
they had the chicken wire, which we want to try to avoid,
And we don't
so
want to track that.
we want to look at that between now and the 5th. I understand what you're saying.
Yeah,
And I
and
think,
then the other last thing was, along with having the chief design planner looking at the plant work or the landscape, we were suggesting with the pediment, and then if you do
Right,
decide to
the
go with
corners,
the gable, that the board get to see a mock-up or something that you can get an idea what you're approving, so that when it gets constructed, we're not all sitting here going,
Yeah,
that's
but
not
I
what I
think
had in
that's-
my mind.
that's why Joe's motion is good, so we can at least start working on the pediment and get that in there, because we know we're going to do that, so.
So just wanted to bring those two things.
Okay, so the motion will include as amended by Mr. Claremont for the chief designer, as recommended by the DPD staff, and any further problems or modifications come back before the board for final approval. So that was made in form of a motion. Any discussion on that motion? Mr. Fischett? Or Mr. Lockhart, any questions? No, have none, so there's a motion made on the floor.
Second that, Mr. Chairman.
Motion made in second, all in favor, say aye.
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 Chair votes yes, so those matters have been approved, and we'll see you at the next meeting on January 5th, 2009.
Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Same to you, Counselor. Good luck. Good luck, Mr. Gray. Moving along, the next matter we have is a bond release on Hickory Hills Estate. The board will discuss the release of remaining funds being held as a performance guaranteed for the subdivision known as Hickory Hills Estate. Aaron did receive a email, which is in our packet, which has said that the City of Lowell Engineers Office will accept the paving repair that was done on Freedom Way sidewalk, and that it was under his belief that the last remaining issue was that it was holding for the bond. Aaron, any further comment on that, or does that speak for itself?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. The Walter Erickson, who is the developer, was finally able to get somebody. One of the challenges was it was a pretty small job.
I remember when he came in and he addressed the issue.
Yeah, yes, he was able to find somebody,
Yeah,
and the engineers were happy with what he did. So I don't think it says anywhere in the letter that I gave to you, but there's $2,000 that's remaining in the bond, so that's.
I remember when he first came in, the question was he couldn't get something to do with that small job.
Right.
And then he addressed to us and said he was working on it. We did see the pictures from the city that the pavement wasn't staying down, it was loosely.
Yeah.
And then the gentleman said, I come in, I tried to get bids out, nobody wants to do the $2,000 job. And then he asked for an extension. I believe we granted him the extension, and then looks like he got the work done. So, any board members have any questions on this? Or what we have left would be a motion to release the bond.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that, based on the work completed and the sign-off from the City's Engineers Department, that we release the bond.
I'll second.
Motion made in second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes yes, that matter's been approved. The next matter is, under old business, 1782 Middlesex Street. This is a continuation that's been on since October and December. The Lowell Planning Board voted to continue the public hearing for the project located at 1782 Middlesex Street during the October 20th, 2008 meeting to tonight's meeting, in order to provide the applicant time to pursue a zoning change for the parcel located at 19 Columbia Road. The board will review requests from the applicant to extend the continuance, as they have yet to receive a hearing from the City Council on the zone change. Redevelopment of the site includes 7,500 square foot commercial building, providing 5 storefronts, each approximately 1,200 square feet in size. The project spreads 26 parking spaces over 2 lots, one with access from Wood and Middlesex Street, providing 18 spaces, and the other access from Columbia Street with 8 spaces. The project is located in the Regional Retail Zoning District and requires a site plan review under section 11.4 of the Lowell zoning ordinance. When this matter was on the agenda, Aaron did call me, and we did discuss the matter, indicated that he had communication with the applicant, Attorney Hall, indicated they still had not appeared before the city council in regards to the hearing on the zone change. I asked him if he could speak with the councilor and see if they were willing to come forward tonight, or if they were requesting another continuance. And I also indicated to him if they were requesting a continuance, if he could address that he would waive the constructive approval for the lengthiness of the proceeding, because he's requesting a conditional time for the matter to go before the city council for the zone change. I knew it went to the council referred it to the law department, and Aaron, I forget what happened after that. And we had conversation, but I forget the detail.
Yeah,
You
I
gonna
thi-
check with the law department to see if it was coming out of there, or
Yeah, I
a
think
date
what
in the
happened,
future?
what happened was, they didn't provide a legal description of
That's
the
right.
property or the parcel, so the legal department wasn't writing up the motion. They've now given that to the legal department, and from what Attorney Hall said, it sounds like that should be back to the city council for referral to the planning board shortly. He said within 30 days.
Okay.
I don't know if
So I
I
know-
would be that optimistic, but.
I know basically, as we discussed in the past, if it does go to the zone change, it will have to go before the council. They'll refer it to the planning board. We'll vote on the recommendation of the zone change. And regardless of what our vote is, it's non-binding on the city council. We'll go back to the city council. I know the applicant was trying to resolve this with the neighbors. I know the neighbors had retained counsel, and council had been aware of this, and council was on board with this last time. I think it was Attorney Curtis, and they have no problem with the matter going for the public hearing for the zoning change. I think that was basically a compromise that both council felt could be worked out, and hope for satisfying the neighborhood in this matter. Question is here, he's hoping that it be within the next 30 days. That means, we're talking that he has to be back before us. Looking at our schedule, I think if we adopt the new schedule for January, we're looking at a meeting the 22nd, due to the fact that with Martin Luther King Day, on that Monday's a holiday, we wouldn't hold our regular scheduled meeting. So the question I have is whether we want to continue to that date, or should we just give it a additional time to make sure that it falls within the time period if he's running short. We gave him October to December. Now we're here in December, and he's asking for 30 days. So I have no problem going with the continuous. I'm just curious.
Mr.
Do you feel
Chairman,
that
if I
30 would be sufficient?
may ask a question, or if Aaron knows, I know they had originally broached the subject of having a joint public hearing. Have they abandoned that, and are they pursuing 2 separate public hearings, do you know, Aaron? or-
That's right.
Yeah, I talked to Attorney Hall about that and suggested that it would be better, given the circumstances, to continue with a separate hearing,
Okay, good.
to allow for just more opportunity for the public to comment on
Good,
this.
okay.
And Attorney Hall was fine with that. He was, I think given how long this has taken, I don't think 2 weeks is going to hurt them at all. So
Okay.
he seemed palatable to that idea. I can confirm, but
Yeah,
when I
okay, no.
talked to him about 2 or 3 months
Yeah.
ago about it, he seemed fine with it.
Good, no, thank you.
So it'd probably be no sooner than January 22nd.
That's what I'm looking at.
Yeah, so I would suggest that we put it on for that date, see where we are at that point.
Okay, so you want to put that in the form of a motion that,
Make that motion to continue this matter to January 22nd, 2009.
I'll second the motion.
motion made and second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, chair votes yes. So we'll continue the matter to January 22nd, 09. Aaron, if you could just follow it up to Attorney Hall, if you would, I'd appreciate that with the letter, tell him that date. And if he needs anything from us ahead of time, to notify us, and we can mark it up shorter thereafter if we have to. If
Okay,
he wants
yeah,
to
no
come in sooner, or any communication. If he does have a date set and time, if he wants to bring that to our attention, or even if we know when it's coming in, if we could put something on the old business for January 5th to put the board members on notice, if he has a date, and then we can look at those dates and consider that in the future. If
Okay.
he knows between now and then.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay? Thank you. Moving along, we had notices in the budding towns, we had several in our packet. Any of the board members have any comments on those? We had several from Tewksbury, Berica, some other towns. If not, entertain a motion that we place those on file.
Chairman, I make a motion we place the notices from abutting towns on file.
Motion's been made. Anyone want to second that motion?
Second that, Mr.
Motion
Chairman.
made and second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes yes, that matter has been approved. We do have a couple of other matters in the packet on for tonight's consideration. Aaron, you come up with the memorandum that we were gonna do that you gave us a copy of here in regards to, conditions being approved before and after the planning board, and you gave us a proposal in the packet. You want
Yeah, would you like me to kind of elaborate a little bit?
Sure.
I know I just
mean,
gave you
it-
the
It's
document.
very well written, so I think we get the gist of it, but if you want to just comment on it and see if we have any further discussion.
Yeah, basically, this is a document or a little addition to the procedure for site plan review, special permit, any kind of project that requires planning board approval, to make sure that the conditions that are being placed on approvals are being addressed in the projects, and placing it on the onus of the applicant to go through the process of making sure all the different departments who have to sign off on a project do so. So what I've given you is a memorandum that basically outlines the process to the applicant. So this is telling them, okay, you've got your approval, whether it's a site plan approval or a special permit, but it's a conditional approval. You need to go to the different departments based on those conditions and get a sign-off from the department head or their surrogate, whoever can sign off for them. So I gave as an example a project that has been approved already. It's the Lowell General Hospital. They were adding 2 more floors to their parking garage. Yeah.
Right.
And there was 3 conditions, and so you can see there's a table here. One of them was subject to approval, the stormwater by the city engineer. You'll see that that's who needs to sign off is called out, as well as what permit will be held until that is actually signed off, and that's the building permit. I've actually added one other iteration since I gave this to you, basically just telling people what the permits are. So BP would be building permit, CO is a certificate of occupancy, but giving them some timeline and chronology of when these things need to be addressed. So in this case, if the applicant was to move forward, before they could go and get a building permit to construct, they needed to make sure that this was signed by the city engineer. 2 other issues on this were looking at possibly putting bicycle facilities within the parking garage, and then standpipes for the fire department. Both of these were kind of issues that needed to be addressed on a later date, so they could be addressed before the certificate of occupancy was issued. But essentially what happened was, once all the issues are dealt with, I receive all the signatures, I get this back from the applicant, I will sign this document, the applicant will sign this document, I will then sign a final copy of the plan and keep that in the file, and so that we have a plan that is kind of the key plan that we can go to, that we know is the one that was approved by the planning board, rather than, you know, this date, it shows on here on this plan, it was what was approved. We have something that we can go to that's a little bit more concrete. And it also gets a signature from the applicant saying that we realize that we have an approval that is based on conditions and that these conditions are dealt with. Right now, for the most part, I mean, to be fair, for the most part, the applicants make sure that these things get done.
So it's not a burden for them, it's a checks and balances.
No, it may add a little bit of extra
Clarifies.
time, but I think, yeah.
Clarifies what's going on.
Right, yeah, they know it just adds a little bit of time, they'll have to go get a
Can't miss it.
signature, but I think I think it's a worthy extra step to make sure that
I do too.
we don't run into a situation, well, Old Mother Hubbard may not be a great example, because some of that had to do with some deviations from the
Right.
plan, but to where we get too far down the line and we're talking about something that's already constructed that should have been dealt with before, so.
I think, Aaron, before you came on, I think Jerry remembered that, like, was it New Bridge Estates that turned into Old Bridge Estates?
Oh, yeah, no,
Phase 1,
no
2, 3,
bridge
4, 5?
estates. Whoa, whoa.
Yeah, we changed that into Old Bridge Estates. That went on for,
Yeah, see, that was.
what, 5 years? Yeah, the developer bellied up and left, and then we had to have new developers come in and fix it up, and
Yeah.
they kept calling it New Bridge, and then we changed it to Old Bridge.
Old
and-
Bridge.
Yeah, I mean, that was, you remember very clearly, I'm sure. He wrote on the board, yep, I know he was a neighborhood activist up
Oh,
there.
yeah, he
and,
was involved in it.
Yeah, we had quite a while, and then finally it worked out nice, but it took a long time. And I think if something like this was in place at the time, that would've helped a lot, and that was a big
Definitely
development out
would've
there. One of the bigger ones we had in a long time out your way, I mean.
I think
That was
another
where
good-
things were getting changed just by the applicant. I mean, I remember the chairman at the time with Arthur Hammond, he was up there on site, and water was flowing through people's yards, people's backyards, through the streets and everything, yeah. And things weren't where they're supposed to be. He was knocking on the door for the trailer of the engineer. What's this doing here? Well, what do you mean? Who are you? Oh, yeah. Yeah, a couple of the walkthroughs with the
That
chairman and
positive.
people on board, right, yeah, and they just started changing things at will. And then we got a lot of complaints from neighborhoods, and then they lost their funding and left and gone, and then other people came to the plate and did a good job clearing it up. Yeah, they did a very good job. But that went on for a long time, so hopefully something like this would have kept that a little closer when it came to our attention a lot sooner. So this basically is something you needed approval on tonight, or just something that,
Well, yeah, I mean, I wanted to
Wanna
give the
buy us
planning board
first?
an
Sure.
opportunity to look at it and
Okay.
know what kind of processes we're trying to put in place to make sure that, you know, plans that are approved or
Mhm.
are being carried out is, you know, you're reviewing them and approving them. I don't know if I had mentioned that, this document on the second page of the table with all the signatures would eventually get to the building department.
okay.
So it's something that they would have, or a copy of, so that they know that everything is closed out and they don't have to worry about handing out building permits or occupancy, certificates of occupancy.
So the signatures on the conditions would be signed by whom
By whoever,
is responsible for that item?
exactly,
Fire
exactly.
department, let's say, or whatever it may be?
Correct, so, yeah, anything that has to do with, you know, fire access, Captain Weber would need to sign off on that. In some cases where the chief design planner has to look at plant species and that sort of thing, she'd be the one signing off on that. And what would happen in some cases is, in this, where you have conditions that would hold up different permits, one being a building permit, one being the certificate of occupancy, I could just, to move things forward, I could kind of initial those things that need to be done before the building permit to move the project along to the point where then those items that need to be dealt before the certificate of occupancy, then that would hold up that. And then finally, when everything's done, that's when this thing would get signed off and the plan would be signed off. So it is kind of an iterative process, and it shouldn't hold up the construction process.
No, I think it's good. It's a good idea. It keeps everyone on track as to what's supposed to be done, and it also provides information for the applicant that
Yeah, I
they know
remember
and
the items.
understand
I
that
just
any
wondered if-
deviation from the plans, especially architectural or site design, has got to be brought back to the board so they can deal with it before there's an issue that we have difficulty dealing with.
Mr. Fischett, any comments on that?
I think it's a good tool that, you know, can certainly address a lot of issues before, as Mr. Claremont said, before construction has already taken place, and it's an opportunity to put the petitioner, you know, I don't want to say on notice, but for the petitioner to realize as they sign on here that they have to be accountable for this. I guess, Aaron, just a question. The applicant, would they sign this, when would they sign it? Is that something you would have them come back in? Would you mail it out to them? How would that,
They would need to sign this before they can get a permit.
Okay.
Before they could get a permit. Mine would be the final signature that all the items have been addressed. They would sign this at the beginning of the process.
That's what I was going to say, because it would be
Yeah.
important for them to sign it at the beginning of the process as their acknowledgement of receiving this, and I guess.
Right, they're basically acknowledging what their responsibility is, that it is a conditional approval.
Right.
And also they're acknowledging this process, what they need to do.
No, I guess, and then, so how would you, I mean, would you mail it out to them? Would you have them come back
Right.
into the planning department?
Basically, anytime an applicant gets an approval, I they get a copy of the decision letter. This would essentially become a part of the decision letter. So they would have the decision as it's written out and filed with the clerk. It would add this memo to at least the one that is going to the applicant. I'm probably going to send it to all of the different departments that have to sign off on one of the conditions as well, so that they know it's coming.
Okay.
So this would be mailed out to the applicant once the decision's made. They already get a copy of the decision now. This would just be attached to that.
Okay, so you're not going to require their signature on file of their acknowledgement of this, I guess is what I'm...
Oh, right. It would eventually need to be. It would have to be eventually be on the file, because as they bring this back for my signature,
Right.
I would have a copy of that.
Yeah. No, I just say ideally it would be good to have it at the beginning of the process. with
Yeah,
their acknowledgement,
yeah.
but, yeah.
So maybe it would be good to have them come in. We could have a post-approval meeting with me, where we
I mean,
go through
they
this.
could come in to get a copy of the conditions, at that time you haven't signed it.
Yeah.
I think it would help to accentuate the,
You know, they say, you know, the board's approved it, I do have the outline of conditional approval, please stop down by for your copy and acknowledgement, then you give them
Right,
a copy of that and have them sign it.
yeah, okay.
And usually if they want a copy of the conditions, usually if they're on the timetable, they'll come in.
right,
Once the
exactly.
timetable's gone, then it's tough to get the signature back.
You have something they need. so-
Right, so they'll come in. And usually like after the meeting, they'll say, can we come in and see you tomorrow, Aaron? You're like, yeah.
That's right.
And so you'd say, fine, I'll have those posted up, it's ready, come in, then you go, you give it to them.
And then you have it on file, and it's, you know, I think that's perfect.
And to that point, maybe I'd suggest modifying the form so that the applicant's signature is moved to the top. That's going to be the first step in this process that the applicant's going to sign, and then there'll be the conditions, so they'll understand that these conditions have to be met, and there's going to be signatures by the department. The final step will be your signature as associate planner, that there's been a final review and everything's all set.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
That way his signature right on top, that's the first issue to address.
Yeah,
Okay.
good.
Now, would we do this with, everything that comes before us, like the site plan, special permit, subdivisions? Okay, so you want it, it'll be so what we're gonna do is incorporate, as you have it now, conditional sign-off list. Which would be, so basically, you would be entertaining a motion that we accept in a, conditional sign-off list, for all projects that we approve in the future. That be correct, Aaron, basically?
Yeah, that
So it'll be
works for me, yeah.
Okay. Board members comfortable with that? So we approve, as amended, with the applicant's signature going to the top, the conditional sign-off list from the planning board after decision. All board members in favor of that?
Yeah,
Okay, have a motion to that effect?
Favor.
So moved.
Second?
Motion made and second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All board members in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Chair votes yes. So we will accept that as a condition for the sign-off list? Thank you.
Yeah, that's,
With the changes, of course.
Okay, I know we have a couple of things under the correspondences. One you just gave us tonight, Aaron, for mass development. You just gave us a copy of the handout tonight. Can you give us a little update on this? Like, looks like you just received this one.
Yeah, this is,
This is looking for a letter to notify us of a project, and to request to be advised to propose project, whether it conflicts or not with the comprehensive plan. Haven't we seen one of these in the past?
yeah, there's been a couple of these in the last year.
And then a couple, in the last couple of months, I noticed.
Yeah, actually more frequently. Anytime mass development is going to loan a company money for startup or construction or whatever, they basically send these out to the pertinent agencies in the town and surrounding, just for comment, just to make sure that it's conforming to the master plan and what everybody was intending for. I just took a quick look at, this is in the light industrial zoning district, Old Canal Road off of Stedman Street.
oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So this fits pretty well with what the master plan is trying to do and trying to maintain and preserve some light industrial in the city. So this seems to fit pretty well with it. I didn't do a deep review, but it looks to me like it.
Do you know if they're looking for an affirmative response or just a notification if we felt it did not comply with the master plan?
Just a notification if you felt that it didn't comply with the master
So no
plan.
action.
Yeah, unless you felt that it didn't work with what the vision of the city was, or, you know, in the master plan. So I think if we can just let it go.
Yeah, clearly out there it does work.
Okay, moving along, I noticed we also have the proposal for our 2009 meeting schedule. As indicated, most all our meetings are the first and third Monday of the month, except for when they fall on a holiday, we usually meet that Thursday. But I know in September, we have 2 on Thursday. Is that a conflict with the other board, with other members being here on Monday night? See, in September, we have the 10th,
24th.
because then you have the 24th. I know last September was on the 15th, I was unavailable, so we put it to the Thursday. We can either accept this briefly tonight or wait till Mr. Genman's here to see if he has any conflicts on any of these dates. Any board members have any question on that? And then the other one I noticed, December one is the 21st, which is like tonight with the 15th, which is 21st. I didn't know if that would have to do with the scheduling of the room as well, or,
For December 21st?
yeah. Can we do a week earlier, or people?
We probably could, well,
Or-
no, we probably could, because I don't think the zoning board meets in here if they have a meeting. I can confirm that.
Yeah, we can look at that.
Yeah, usually
Would you gentlemen rather meet a week before December, which would be the,
14th.
It'd probably be better, since we only have one meeting in December, that would be,
I
it'd
think
be
so,
5
too, yeah.
weeks from the prior meeting, so you might want to move it up a week anyway.
Yeah.
so that one
Yeah,
jumped out at me.
14th,
Okay, so if you look at that, we have time to act on that anyways, but we can go tentatively, so maybe 12, 14 on that one.
December 21st, you're going to be out shopping for Christmas too anyway, right? It's gonna
Be
last-
all done by then.
Oh, that's true, that's true.
Start early next year.
Never.
Yeah, so I know in the September 24th, was that to do with a conflict meeting, or we had 2 Thursdays in September? I know, like I say, last year, because I know, what's it, the Labor Day is the 7th, correct?
Yeah, I believe
That
so,
bumps us
yeah.
to the 10th,
Right.
and then I didn't know, because usually the Monday nights, we have the zoning board of appeals, right? They split with us the other Monday nights?
Right, exactly, yeah.
Is that what that one is, maybe?
Yes, and I think the September 24th, I felt like there was some event that happened every year, the Monday of
Okay.
that week.
Yeah. Okay,
It's not exactly a holiday, but that's why I
Yeah.
pushed that.
Okay.
those dates.
so do we want to accept this tentatively, and we can revisit it as the year goes on, if any changes come up? Acceptable to the board members at this time? And then we
Fine with
can,
me.
and then we'll
Yeah.
have, it when Mr. Genman's here next meeting, if he has any conflicts, we can look at it. I know last year we made little adjustments here to there when personal schedules came into ball around February school vacation. I think either Mr. Genman or I wasn't available that time, and we didn't have any public hearings on, so we bumped it to the next week. So tentatively, we can accept this at this point in time and do any amendments that come forward. Board members satisfied with that?
Mhm.
Okay, put that in form of a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Okay.
I'll second that, Mr.
Motion made in
Chairman.
second, okay. Any other further general correspondences? Aaron from Planning and Development?
I think that covers it, yeah.
Okay.
it's-
Any of the board members have any comments or anything?
No?
Just one comment, I thought it was pretty good about the site visit that we did have the other day. I thought we did accomplish a lot. I know it's getting back to where we were. I'm not gonna comment about how the vote was, but I wanna thank all the board members that come out first thing in the morning, being there on a cold morning to actually digest a lot of the comments that we got from Aaron. I know we did a lot of work on it and tried to organize everybody's schedule to be there. I think, looking at some of the sites, I know we drive by there as board members, and we do stop at different sites amongst our duties in the city. But I think to walk it with the neighbors in the neighborhood, and to actually go in the building and look at some of the format, kind of answer a little more questions than just when you do it by yourself.
That helps.
You know, and I want to thank the board members for coming out early in the morning to address it, and their busy schedule, so I appreciate that from all members. So if we have no further matters, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a
Ooh,
motion.
ooh, Sorry.
Motion's made,
Make a motion
second.
to adjourn.
Okay, motion to adjourn.
Oh, all right.
Second. I want to say goodnight, everybody. This is our last meeting for 2008. I want to wish everybody Merry Christmas and a Happy Holidays and Happy New Year's, and thank you very much, everybody, for watching. Good night, everybody. Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen.
That's probably a good idea to revisit this